everyone, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 3 of Gravely Amusing. It's the only horror comedy podcast that is drunk on homemade Ecto Cooler right now because we're recording on St. Patty's Day, and pretty much everybody's drunk on St. Patty's Day. I am your host, the man child of steel, Brian Peters, here with my co-host, the Steve Weiser, Stephen Cope. What's up, Steve?
What's up? I'm excited for this episode.
I'm really excited for this one. I mean, I was up till like 4 a.m. typing notes. So and then I was like, oh, the sun's rising in, I don't know, Asia, whatever. but today is a very exciting episode, the history of the Ghostbusters. So we're going to cover pretty much everything going up to Frozen Empire coming out on March 22nd. Some things we don't know a whole lot about, but some things we do. So I apologize if we miss anything. If any of you fans know anything that we miss, please shout out to us and let us know, because we love the Ghostbusters and we pretty much want to know everything about it, because Steve and I are readers. We read a lot. Like we love the facts. That's what we're about.
Mm-hmm.
So in my opinion, and maybe Steve's too, the 1984 film is one of the greatest films of all time.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Period. Is definitely a film that's probably shaped my whole life. That and Back to the Future are like the two films have shaped my whole life. Like it has created my love for cinema, my love of the paranormal, my love of just things that can't be explained. Like it's Ghostbusters is it. Like I love Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
There would not be a Gravely Amusing podcast without Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters is like the absolute definition of horror comedy. It's the blueprint for modern day like horror comedies. Young Frankenstein is the blueprint if you want to do like old school classic horror stuff. And I look forward to when we talk about that. But that's when we get into the 70s, and we're in the 50s now. Until except we're talking modern stuff now. Like I know what I do, It's the 40th anniversary of Ghostbusters, people.
Yeah.
Just let me be. There are three things in this world, Steve, that make me feel good. It's watching films I love with a good snack, maybe a pretzel, soft pretzel with some cheddar cheese,
Mm.
maybe some nachos, and then a nice beverage with it. I love it. And
Mm-hmm.
then I love being with the ones I love watching those films. And then busting. Busting makes me feel good, buddy. I'm glad to be busting out history with you, cousin.
Yep, me too.
The innuendos. I love our innuendos. All right. Before we get into the real depth of the history of the Ghostbusters, let's tell you who the Ghostbusters are. So if you don't know, if you live under a rock, if you seriously don't know who the Ghostbusters are, we're just going to tell you a little bit of it. I know in past segments of I Pity the Fool, we've given a lot of information, but I've kind of like just gave the bare bones here. So let's begin with the segment I like to call I Pity the Fool. This is where we give you just enough about a subject so you don't look like a fool if you're among geeks and they want to quiz you about the Ghostbusters. So we promise to just give you the basics here. So you want to know the Ghostbuster history and facts? Well, who are you going to call? You're going to call Steve.
Well, who are the Ghostbusters? They are a group of three paranormal scientist friends named Peter, Ray, and Egon, and one everyman named Winston, who investigates, encounter, and captures ghosts, paranormal manifestations, demigods, and demons in New York City. I think a lot of bad crap happens in New York.
A lot. A lot. But what we mean by like Winston's everyman, it's basically like he's meant to be the audience. Like he's meant to be
Yeah,
that normal person that's just like thrown into it.
thrown
So
into it and kind of getting his balance on things, and yeah,
I freaking love New York. You and I, we should just take a trip to New York. You and me.
yeah.
We
I've
should do it.
never been there.
You've never been there?
I haven't even been close. I mean, I've driven through it to get to Maine, but I've never like
Well,
seen the city or anything.
Maine is just pretty much a slice of heaven. New
Oh
York
yeah,
is like
definitely.
purgatory. Like there's really good
The in
stuff,
between, yeah.
but it's so dirty. Like, the city is so dirty.
Yeah.
But okay, I'll remember that. We're gonna have
Yeah.
to take a trip to New York.
That'd be cool.
Us and the boys, we're gonna have to go. But anyway,
Well, they live in a firehouse that they modified as their base of operations in most of the films, but we'll get back to that later. Um, that was their first place in most of the films, other than the female one that's dreadful.
ugh,
Um,
I
they
don't even wanna talk about it, but we have to.
Yeah. They drove a modified 1959 Cadillac Miller Meteor Sentinel limo style and loader combination car that is an ambulance slash hearse as their car that they named Ecto One, which I would
I
love
know
to
that's a
get a hold of.
mouthful. I know that's a
Yes.
mouthful, but we'll talk about Ecto One in a bit. But
Oh yeah.
the reason why it's like because the car is literally a combo of different things. So,
Hmm.
but
I would love to have a hearse. I would deck it
my
out in Ghostbusters
my
stuff.
wife wants a hearse so bad, like she
That would
really
be
does.
awesome.
But
And they have numerous gadgets and tech they use to capture and combat the paranormal. This tech includes a PKE meter, which detects ghost energy and has arrows on it to tell them the direction to go. Their weapons are extremely iconic as well. They wear what is called a proton back, which is basically a nuclear reactor backpack with a hose that shoots out a stream that they use to lasso ghosts. They also have the iconic trap, which when they lasso the ghosts, they drag to bust them. Ghostbusters are absolutely iconic and always a good time. Speaking of a good time, let's jump right into losing our virginity, Brian.
yeah, why not? We're already drunk. Nice segue. Nice segue. Um, Losing Your Virginity is a part of the podcast where we share the story when we lost our Ghostbuster virginity. So, Steve, how did you first meet the Ghostbusters? Can you even remember back
I
30 some years?
Oh geez, I know, not at all. Probably phew, because it came out in what, 84, so I wasn't even born yet. So probably not until like the 90s, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the
But
same.
ever since I saw it, I've been a fan. So I would say around the 90s.
So was your first experience the cartoon or you think like the
No,
movie?
the movie, definitely the movie. And I believe I don't even know where I saw it, but yeah, it was definitely the movie.
Nice. Nice. Did you have the toys?
Mm,
I don't I think I had all the toys.
You had a bunch of the Ghostbusters stuff. I think I may have had, like, a Slimer or something, or no, I did. I had the, rubber Stay Puffed Marshmallow Man, maybe a foot high,
Hell yeah.
and it was hard as hell. But,
Oh
yeah, I
yeah.
do remember having a Stay Puffed.
When you wanted to lightly beat the crap out of somebody, you use Stretch Armstrong. When you wanted to beat the living crap out of somebody and leave them bloody mess, you use Stay
The
Puft.
Stay Puft, yep.
Marshmallow my ass.
Yep.
Nice, nice. I think my first interaction with Ghostbusters was probably Ghostbusters 2. My mom's best friend, Carol, who I call Aunt Carol, God rest her soul. She is responsible for so much of my personality and love of things. But I think she recorded Ghostbusters 2 off of like HBO or something or whatever because she had like this big VHS collection of stuff. And I think I watched Ghostbusters 2 like hundreds of times before I actually watched Ghostbusters 1. Yes, because I don't think she had Ghostbusters 1, but so I remember Ghostbusters 2. I definitely remember the cartoon because like Ecto Cooler was my shiznit. Like I yeah, it was my stuff. And I think like I didn't see Ghostbusters 1 until I was able to rent it from Rick's Video. Do you remember Rick's Video in Greensburg?
This
Like
video,
it's
where
in
was
South
it?
Greensburg.
Oh!
It was up on the hill where Duncan is. It was like up above that hill in South
Oh,
Greensburg.
you mean I think there's a daycare there now. It's a
Yeah, it's a
I think
daycare.
there was across the street from a restaurant that had, like, a metal or a VFW or something, but yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
Yes, but, like, Rick's Video was, the like, Rick's Video was the ace in the hole, the diamond in the rough, because Ghostbusters didn't have something, or not Ghostbusters, the Blockbuster didn't have something.
Yeah.
Like Rick's Video would have it, and Rick's Video would have that rare stuff, and all their movies had that plastic case like Blockbuster, but it would have the movie poster on the front.
Oh,
Rick took
really?
care of stuff, and then I remember renting old wrestling VHSs, and they would be the plastic stuff, and then he got a label maker and wrote on the side, and it was the bumpy labels, and
Yeah.
it's Ghostbusters. And, Rick's Video, I miss you. If somewhere out there is listening, a know Rick, and Rick's still alive, you give him my love, because Rick's Video shut down before COVID, because I remember driving back and visiting my mom in Greensburg, and then Rick's was gone, and then I know it was early 2000s, and ugh. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's where I lost my virginity, thanks to Rick and my aunt Carol. All right. so so it's time for the main event. This is where we're getting into it all, because it's the main event. This is where we talk about the film, book, TV show, novel, comic book, or character from a moment in horror history. And this is the story of the Ghostbusters. This year marks the 40th anniversary of the Ghostbusters. We're not 40 yet, but we're getting there.
I'm
But
close.
we're close. Freaking geezer.
Mhm. I feel it.
So let's get to it. Let's get into the meat and potatoes. So how did this film come to be? Steve,
Well
my co-host, get to it.
well, the OG was about 40 years ago, Ghostbusters 1 in 1984. Its origin goes like this: Ghostbusters was an idea created by a comedian, actor, and SNL alum Dan Aykroyd due to his fascination with the belief in the paranormal. His father, who wrote the book A History of Ghosts, and his mother, who claimed to have seen ghosts, while also his granddaddy experimented with radios to contact the dead, and his great grandfather was a
Renowned,
renowned
renowned.
spiritualist.
So funny thing. So, well, not funny. His great grandfather would have seances in this barn with these he would gather people from the town and have these seances in the town, with witchcraft and paranormal stuff. Like
That's
it's
crazy. That's cool.
pretty crazy. Um, yeah. So Dan was probably destined to be a paranormal person.
Oh yeah, definitely. But he left Paranormal Ways behind in the early 70s and joined Second City and then SNL in 1975, which he was one of the Blue Brothers, the father of the Conehead family, which was a good movie. I That's a secret good movie. I like that movie.
That people sleep on that movie,
Yeah,
but
definitely.
but that movie, I think that was Chris Farley's first movie.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think so.
I'm
Yeah.
pretty certain it was his first movie because he played the boyfriend.
Mhm.
Um, that movie is great, like
Yeah, I have to
absolutely
watch that with the
fantastic.
wife.
Oh yeah,
I don't know if
yeah,
she's
absolutely.
seen it or not, but, and one of the Wild and Crazy Guys with Steve Martin.
We're just wild and crazy guys.
Yes. He was a comedic genius, soon to be a movie idea genius. In 1981, Aykroyd read an article on quantum physics and parapsychology in the Journal of the American Society for Psychical Research, which gave him the idea of people trapping ghosts. He was also drawn to the idea of modernizing old comedic ghost films of the mid 20th century by comics such as Abbott and Costello, Hold That Ghost, 1941, Bob Hope, who was in The Ghost Breakers, 1940, and The Bowery Boys, Ghost Chasers, 1951. He thought a modern idea of ghost hunters in a comedy setting would teach with tech would be cool. Aykroyd wrote the script intending to star alongside Eddie Murphy and his close friend and fellow Saturday Night Live alum, John Belushi. But before Belushi's accidental death in March 1982, Aykroyd recalled writing one of Belushi's line when producer and talent agent Bernie Brillstein called to inform him of Belushi's death. Dan Aykroyd then gave the script to his agent, and his agent found him Ivan Reitman. Aykroyd agreed Ivan Reitman was the logical choice to direct based on his success with films such as Animal House with John Belushi, Meatballs with Bill Murray, and was hit off of Stripe. Oh, off his
It was hot off of Stripes.
yeah, off his
That's exactly what you
Stripes,
meant to say.
1981. Which again, I love that movie. Is awesome. Which was
Which
also
one?
with
Which one you love? Stripes?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a good one.
Reitman was aware of the film's outline while Belushi was still a prospective cast member. The original script was pretty long and pretty crazy. This script version took place in the future with many groups of intergalactic Ghostbusters. There were spaceships and monsters and aliens, and it seemed like a Ghostbuster wasn't an everyday job in this futuristic settings. I even felt it would have cost something like 200 million to make. Yeah. Oh, yeah. If you're gonna do all that,
Like
jeez.
in '84, 200 million. Like movies today are made for 200 million, like Marvel movies,
Oh
and
yeah.
they're ridiculous. But like, holy, like, um, yeah, spaceships, aliens, and like Ghostbusters. So like, I think he envisioned Ghostbusters actually being an everyday job, like plumber or like
Okay.
whatever. But like that script would have been freaking nuts, and I want it.
I would have loved to see it, but then my first question would be, why are they called Ghostbusters if they're fighting the spaceships, monsters, and aliens?
Thank you. Exactly. Yeah. Totally. Absolutely. Absolutely.
But
You're
it would
totally
have
right.
been fun to see. Yeah, it would have been definitely crazy. Aykroyd's original 70 to 80 page script treatment was more serious and intended to be scary. Reitman,
That doesn't make sense though, because if it was meant to be serious, like how can you take intergalactic travel and futuristic stuff and aliens
anything
serious?
like that serious, yeah.
But I guess that he would have made it scary. So whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. Reitman met with Aykroyd at Arts Delicatessen in Studio City, Los Angeles, and explained that his concept would be impossible to make. He suggests that setting it entirely on Earth would be better and set it in current times. Ivan wanted to portray the Ghostbusters' origins before starting their business. This was the beginning of the 1980s. Everyone was going into business. After that meeting, I even said, let's go meet with Harry Ramis, who wrote Meatballs and Animal House and was another comedic genius, which he also starred with Bill Murray in Stripes, if I'm not mistaken.
You are dead on correct, sir.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I
Yep, and
thought.
he helped write that movie and stuff. Yep.
Oh, really? Really?
Mhm. Sure.
Um, he was
And he
also
was
a
like Second City. Like, so
comedian.
people don't know what Second City is. It is a comedy group based out of Chicago. They do have an office in New York, but it's basically like it's almost like a development group. Like if you're in Second City, then you have a chance to be a huge comedian.
Oh, nice.
And like SNL took all these comedians mostly that worked in Second City and improv and like stand up and stuff and put them in SNL. So that's where Second City comes from.
Oh, nice. I kind of
And
figured with the name Second City, it would be based out of Chicago, too.
yeah, for real, for real.
So,
And in Chicago, and I'm going to be going to Chicago for my anniversary in like a month,
yeah,
um,
nice.
in a month exactly, actually. But but
Nice.
um, there is like a comedy school that Harold Ramis made,
Oh,
and
really?
like I know I drove past him one day, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I was just so excited. But so that's what Second City is.
Okay.
Continue, Mister Co-host.
All
My
right, thank
apologies.
you. On that note, Dan said sure, and so they met Harold Ramis at the Burbank Studios. Reitman had worked with Ramis on previous films and believed he could be better execute the tone he intended for the script than Aykroyd. He also felt Ramis should play a Ghostbuster after reading the script. Ramis joined the project immediately. Eddie Murphy was not sold on the script, so he decided to do Beverly Hills Cop instead. Another good movie. So they needed a third man. They called Hulk Hogan, and the NWO was for. Oh wait, sorry, wrong stories. Damn, wrestling is in
Who's
my
the third
mind.
man? Who's the third man, Steve?
So
That
they
was a good joke.
called.
That was a good joke.
Oh yeah, definitely. But they called Bill Murray. Bill had worked with all three men before. The thing with Bill though is he never signed a contract. That's how difficult he was, which I did hear. He was a pain to work with sometimes.
He was an asshole, big time.
Scary stuff. Now, although the script required considerable changes, Reitman pitched the film to Columbia Pictures executive Frank Price in March of 1983. Price found the concept funny, but was unsure because comedies weren't very profitable at the time. He said the film would take a big budget due to its special effects and popular cast. Reitman reportedly said they could work with a 25 to 30 million budget. Some reports say Price agreed as long as the film could be released by June of 84. This left 13 months to complete this film.
Dun, dun,
Damn.
dun.
Damn.
So, did they have any issues making this movie?
Yeah, one of the first issues they faced was the title Ghostbusters was legally owned by Universal Studios due to a 1970s children's show, The Ghostbusters. So they could not use that name at all. Several alternative titles were considered, including Ghost Stoppers, Ghost Breakers, Ghost Smashers, and Ghost Hunters. Ghost Hunters wouldn't have been bad, maybe. But because there are things in this world that we will never understand,
Understand.
we want answers. Well, it turned out that due to some dispute with Coca Cola buying Columbia, Price parted ways with Columbia early in Ghostbusters production and became head of Universal Pictures, at which point he sold Columbia the title for 500,000 plus 1% of the film's profits. Holy shit. Oh, sorry for my language. And what's funny is given Hollywood's accounting practices, they used a method to artificially inflate a film's production costs to limit royalty or tax payouts. So the film never made a profit for Universal to be owed a payment.
I think I think Frank like just did it because he believed in the project and like
Yeah.
and he just like gave him a solid. He did him a solid. Like Frank
Yeah.
Price or Prince or whatever. Um Solid dude. Very solid
Yeah.
dude. Um
But if it wasn't Ghostbusters, would you have picked any of those names?
no.
Nah?
But
Ghost Hunters may have not been bad.
well, you wouldn't have the show that we just made a joke about.
Yeah, that's true.
but but Ghost Hunters would have worked. Ghost Hunters would have worked. But like Ghost what are the other names? Ghost Stoppers, no. Ghost Breakers, probably not. Smashers. Hunters
Yeah.
would have worked. Hunters would have worked.
Are you a Supernatural fan at all?
I wanna be. I'm one of those guys where like I okay, so because I worked so long in ministry and then I worked in the sales, like I was just so busy all the time and like I didn't get to sit down and really watch things. And my wife is not a big TV person. Like she just she's a reader. She's a librarian. I married a sexy
Mhm.
librarian. I married the daughter of the ghost that was in the '84 movie. so, so, my wife was born in '84, so it works.
Yeah,
So,
nice.
yeah, she's a cougar. And, um, where the heck was I going with this?
Supernatural.
Supernatural, yeah, yeah, yeah. So my wife has watched more Supernatural than me because I think before we got together, and I've watched the first season of Supernatural and I loved it, but I haven't continued on because like, the show was still going on at that time, and,
Mhm.
um, when I look at CW shows, I kinda get exhausted with them, especially The Flash and
Yeah.
Arrow. The Flash big time. So, I think, like, I never kept going because there were just so many dang seasons, and it
Yeah.
kind of was very overwhelming. Um, it took a lot to invest in it. So, I will finish it, but not yet.
Well, they
Anyway,
have, like, a mockumentary, they call themselves Ghost Chasers, this group of ghost hunters in there. So, that's why I brought that up.
okay. I
But
will Tyler gets on me about it. You get on me about it. Like, I need to watch
mhm.
Supernatural. I
I've
know I
watched the
sucked.
I've watched that show beginning to end at least 4 times already.
If it makes you feel any better, I watched the X-Files beginning to the end about 4 times.
Yeah, I never watched that one.
You never watched X-Files? You
I've
get on
seen
me
bits
about
and pieces,
Supernatural?
but never
Oh
never
my
watched the whole
gosh. One of the prerequisites to stay married to my wife was I had to watch X-Files.
Oh, really?
Like, my wife is Dana Scully. Like like, my wife loves X-Files so much, like, so much. So, yeah, I had to watch it, and, like, it was the only show where my wife sat next to me with so much glee on her face as we watched something, and, yeah, we don't really have that much anymore where that
Mm,
happens, but that moment was
yeah,
pretty good. That was pretty good. You gotta watch X-Files, dude. Oh,
I'll get
dude,
to it, yep, just like
like,
when you get to Supernatural, I'll get to X-Files.
that's fair. So we'll probably never get to 'em.
Hopefully.
But X-Files gets on, like, so much stuff. Mostly aliens, of course, but there's an episode where they handle the Mandela effect. There's
Oh,
there's, that's an episode that Finch wants us to do so bad. Um, but that's a whole different story. So anyway, you watch X-Files, I'll watch Supernatural. We'll take
sounds
turns.
like a plan.
So other problems Ghostbusters had, back to Ghostbusters, after that commercial break, was the script. There's a lot of problems with the script. So Aykroyd, Ramis, and Reitman began reworking that script because it was just so long and crazy. So they first worked at Reitman's office, then they locked themselves inconveniently in Aykroyd's house in Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts because I mean, if you want to get something done, you go to a miserable, horrible place where your mind is only on what you're working on. So you have to go to Martha's Vineyard. They know how to suffer. But apparently they work day and night in the basement for about 2 weeks. So kind of how I work on podcasts. Aykroyd had to be willing to rework his script, or Ghostbusters was not going to work. So Dan created the funny scenarios and paranormal talk, and Harold Ramis refined the jokes and the dialogue. And they decided to write separately, and then they rewrote each other's drafts. So so Harold would work on one part, Dan would work on one part, and then they would come together to see what worked. So yeah, I guess that would work pretty good. Scenes had to be cut, including asylum haunted by celebrities. That would have been interesting to see. Then there was a scene with an illegal ghost storage facility in a New Jersey gas station. I definitely want to see that. And there was a scene where a ghost pleasures Dan Aykroyd in a dream.
Wait, they kept that one.
Yeah, they kept that one. That I am not a fan of that scene. I hate that.
No, that's just a weird thing to put in this movie.
Like you almost have kind of you almost have a movie that kids could watch without asking a whole lot of questions. Like I mean, Ghostbusters 1 is not as kid friendly as like Ghostbusters 2,
Oh, no,
but
not at all.
but like and that's probably why I didn't see Ghostbusters 1 until I was like maybe 10 or so.
Well, what's
Because I would have
funny
been like,
is oh,
what is
go ahead.
going on?
Well, what's funny is I don't remember half this stuff from when I watched it back then, and then I just rewatched it, I think, Friday, and I'm like, Damn, I don't know if this is gonna work in this time. Like, how much like sexualizing there was in that movie. Like,
All,
hell, a
all,
demon
all
hand came out and got full, you know,
oh, he
booby on
grabbed.
Sigourney.
Yeah, he grabbed some of that titty. Oh yeah, and
So, but
yeah, oh yeah.
yeah,
Are you the keymaster? You know, yeah, it's very. And then, well, we'll get to it when we talk about the
yeah,
plot. But yeah, there's a lot of things in there. But jeez Louise, yeah, yeah, that scene, ugh, yeah, I hate it. But anywho, their initial draft was completed when they left the vineyard in like mid July of 1983. So that's about like 4 months. And a third and near final draft was ready by August. So, regarding the writing of these characters, it was decided early that Harold Ramis' character would be like the brains of the Ghostbusters, and then Dan Aykroyd would play the heart of the Ghostbusters, and then Bill Murray would play the mouth. So, of course, if we were Ghostbusters, I would be the mouth. I would be the Peter
oh
Ray.
yeah, definitely,
Because
definitely.
I don't shut up. Uh, and you're very smart, Steve. So
I'm not that smart. I would consider myself Ackroyd the Heart.
now you'd probably be the Winston, the dude that
Yeah.
people underestimate,
Yep.
but is crazy successful in the end. But we'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah.
Um, so Bill Murray flew to New York after filming this movie called The Razor's Edge. So the movie The Razor's Edge is important to Bill Murray and Ghostbuster history because it was like I thought that he directed this movie, but I don't think he did. I think he like had part of writing it, but it was like a passion project to Bill Murray. So he did The Razor's Edge was like his chance to kind of be serious and kind of go away from comedic tones. And we know with current day Bill Murray that Bill Murray can do serious roles. He did like Lost in Translation, which was amazing. Um, he did. There's some other movies that I lost my head, but Bill Murray can do serious stuff. Um, I don't think that Bill Murray's as good at serious stuff as Robin Williams was. Robin Williams could do anything, but Bill's pretty close with
Yeah.
what he could do. But that Razor's Edge movie was like a passion project that he wanted to do, so he was like trying to get more serious. So that's important to note that he was trying to get away from comedy and be taken more seriously. But anyway, he met with Ramis and Aykroyd, and he offered pretty much no input on his character of what he wanted to do. But Howard Ramis wrote for Bill Murray in Meatballs. He wrote for him in Stripes, so he knew how to handle Bill Murray's character's voice. Pretty much just play the same character. Dan Aykroyd called for the Ghostbusters to have a boss and be directed into situations, kind of like a Charlie's Angels type thing or whatever. But Harold preferred they be in control of their own destiny and make their own choices. I don't think that Ghostbusters would have worked if they had a boss, like telling them
No,
what
not
to
at
do.
all. Nah.
Yeah, I think that it can kind of work now. Uh,
Mhm.
like as long if one of the OGs is kind of the boss directing them, like
Yeah,
Ray
and
or whatever.
helping the little ones move on. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Like grow
totally.
up.
But to start out, no, not at all,
No,
no way.
not at all.
But because they were to control their own destinies, it would lead to distinct personalities with the characters, which is very important. So Bill Murray's character is the cool modern salesman, like me. Dan Aykroyd's Ray is the honest, enthusiastic technician. Harold Ramis is the fact, stoic, intellectual guy. And Ryman thought the most difficult parts of the writing were like determining what was the point of the story, like what's the whole goal here, like what are they gonna do? And it's like you have these Ghostbusters, but like what are the stakes? Like what are we gonna do here? So who was the villain? What was the villain's goal? Why were these ghosts even here? How does the idea of the Marshmallow Man even make sense? So we need a solid cast to tell this story. So as for the cast, we're going to tell you about like the characters as we get into the movies and shows. Um, so you learn more about these characters in real Ghostbusters, actually. So we'll get into it. Um, so it's not a surprise that since they lost Eddie Murphy, Bill Murray was considered essential to making Ghostbusters work. Bill Murray was a huge star. You lose Eddie Murphy, like you need Bill. But he was known for not committing this stuff until late. So they were kind of freaking out. So Price agreed to fund that Razor's Edge movie that was a passion project for Bill. And it would actually and he wanted to fund it so that he could lock Bill in and like I'll pay for your movie that I have no faith in, and you will be in my movie that I have faith in. And the Razor's Edge tanked hard. It came out four months after Ghostbusters and like October, and it did not do well. So Price probably knew it wouldn't do well, but he just like he's willing to lose that little money to make a crap load on Ghostbusters, which is what they believed in. So he kind of manipulated Bill a little bit, which I don't blame him. But they were worried that Bill might not show up, so they got on the wire possibilities to play Peter Venkman. They had Michael Keaton, which Michael Keaton could have worked. I think Michael Keaton could have worked because this was right around Mr. Mom time, and this was pre Ghostbusters or pre Beetlejuice. Keaton probably could have worked because Keaton knows how to do supernatural stuff. Well, he would know how to do supernatural stuff after, during Beetlejuice. But they also had Chevy Chase. I think Chevy Chase would have been more difficult to work with than Bill Murray. Like
Yeah.
Chevy Chase is known to be a complete and utter a hole even today.
Jeez.
Um, I wouldn't have liked Chevy Chase in the role. Well, Chevy Chase probably could have worked because he's a very womanizing character in just about everything he does. So he could have possibly worked. Tom Hanks would have been very interesting.
Yes,
Very
very.
interesting. But I don't think it would have worked.
No.
Robin Williams would have been fantastic. Um,
Mm,
but I don't think Robin Williams doesn't have that dick that's in the Peter Venkman character. Like I don't think Robin Williams could have played that at that time. And then they had Richard Pryor. Uh, I don't think any one of those would have worked, except possibly Michael Keaton. But that's just me. Uh, but also the greatest actor of all time, the guy that the Stonecutters in The Simpsons made a star, Steve Guttenberg, was also considered for the role, but he wasn't
hmm.
chosen. I don't think that would have worked either. For the role of Egon, if and Harold Ramis didn't want to do it, was Christopher Walken because wow, ghost flying New York stole my hot dog. Wow, what are we doing?
No,
Yeah,
yeah.
let's bust. Christopher
No.
Walken wouldn't have worked. John Lithgow. Now, if you don't know who John Lithgow is, he was in Third Rock from the Sun, played like the High Commander character. John Lithgow would have worked.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean, he was really good in Dexter
yes. Yeah, okay.
as
So
the
you
villain
definitely
in
know
that.
John Lithgow.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
I haven't finished Dexter yet. I will. Here, Anthony's got on me. Your mom got on me about
I
that.
know, she told me. It's a good series, trust me,
I
watch it.
watched the first season. It's just like Supernatural. I watched that first season and I was so sold on it, but I haven't finished it. Um, also was considered was Christopher Lloyd, which if Christopher Lloyd would have took the Egon role, we probably wouldn't have had Doc Brown because this was 84 and Back to the Future was 85. So we probably wouldn't have had Doc Brown, so I would have hated that.
Yeah.
Jeff Goldblum was considered. He would have nailed it. Jeff Goldblum would have nailed it. You don't shake your head at me. Shut up. Jeff Goldblum would have nailed it. He would have done fine. Um,
No.
and even Michael Keaton was considered to play Egon as well. So that could have possibly worked. But I think out of that list, probably John Lithgow would probably did the best.
Lithgow or Lloyd would have been good, but he's better as Doc Brown. I agree with you there. But I think those 2 would
Yeah,
have worked.
but thank God we had Harold Ramis. Like the casting in this
Yeah.
movie was really perfect. So the The Appearance of Egon was inspired by a cover of a journal on abstract architecture, oddly enough. And it featured a man wearing a three-piece tweed suit and wire-rimmed glasses with his hair standing straight up. So kind of like this professor look. The character's name Egon came from a Hungarian refugee who worked with Harold Ramis, and his last name was Spengler. And he got it from the German historian Oswald. Oh, I'm so sorry. The first name came from the Hungarian refugee with whom he attended school with, and then the last name Spengler he got from a German historian named Oswald Spengler. So we had these three scientists and who were best pals. So remember that role for Eddie Murphy, Steve?
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't supposed to be Peter Venkman. It was actually supposed to be Winston Zedmore.
Said more.
So because Winston's the black guy.
Yeah.
But that role Winston would go to an actor named Ernie Hudson, and Ernie was kind of an unknown at the time, kinda. He was mostly a TV actor, and I looked up all the stuff that he was in, and this dude like had one episode per big TV roles. So he was on Fantasy Island, Incredible Hulk, Different Strokes, Little House on the Prairie, and yes, it was the Homecoming episode. No, I'm just kidding. That's a Bill Murray joke. But
Yeah. Okay.
he was on Taxi, Dukes of Hazzard, Webster, and he was even on the A Team. He would soon join the A Team of Ghostbusting.
Yep.
But according to Ernie Hudson, he auditioned 5 times for the role of Winston Zenmore. So why he auditioned 5 times, I couldn't find out. But it was probably one of the reasons he took it was because an early version of the script had like this larger role as an Air Force demolitions expert, and he had an elaborate backstory, which no doubt I have no doubt in my mind that was written from Eddie Murphy to have
Oh
a
yeah.
huge role. Um, but Ernie Hudson got screwed because he was excited for this part. It was a huge role, and he agreed for the job for half of his usual salary because he wanted to be a part of it. But the night before shooting began, they screwed him in the butt, and he received a new script with a greatly reduced role. Kind of like Halle Berry in X Men 3. Like she was supposed to have a huge role in X Men 3, and she got screwed.
Oh
And she,
really?
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. You never heard that?
Mm-mm.
It's kind of like a rumor reveal right now. But basically, Halle Berry Storm was supposed to have this like huge role in X Men 3, and the movie was actually going to start with this like this like drought in Africa, and people were starving, and then Storm shows up and brings rain, and she's like this big like she's the
Savior.
savior of the people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Huh.
but they cut it out. They signed Halle Berry, and then they just went psh, 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 throw it all out, and like that's why she's barely in that movie. That's what the rumor is. That's what they say.
Yeah.
Which I totally believe. I think it.
Yeah. It would have probably been a better movie. I didn't really like that third one.
Yeah, yeah. But that's a whole different podcast. So we'll talk
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
Brian the Guys, the superhero podcast. Um, so Hudson got screwed. Right, Reitman told him the studio wanted to expand on Bill Murray's part, and that's why his role was cut. Uh, Aykroyd said that the Winston was the role intended for Eddie Murphy, but Ivan Reitman denied this. So think what you will, what really happened. I met Ernie Hudson about 20 years ago at a Steel City Con in Pittsburgh, and I talked to him about this, and he basically said to me like, it was the 80s, and I'm black, and you kind of had to take what you could get, and they screwed me, but if I wasn't in that movie, then I wouldn't get roles in The Crow, and I wouldn't got to work in Oz. So I'm kind of like, even though I was kind of screwed, I'm glad that I took on that. And
Mm.
he told me that in the early 2000s. So
Oh, that's
you know,
cool.
so but he was glad to be a part of it. So fun fact: Gregory Hines, who I don't know a whole lot about Gregory Hines, I know his face. but he was in the History of the World Part One with um, Mel Brooks. He was considered for the role of Winston. So you have to look up Gregory Hines of who he was. But also considered for the role of Winston was Reginald Vell Johnson. Do you know who Reginald Vell Johnson is, Steve?
Yes, I do.
All right, good, because you had me worried. Um,
Yep, I know all about him.
my man, I love you, my cousin, my boy. So there is a funny fan theory about Reginald Vell Johnson in this movie. So, and I saw it on a TikTok the other day, so I have to share it. So, the theory of Reginald Vell Johnson in Ghostbusters is that he was the cop that was, guarding the Ghostbusters, had a very small cameo in the movie. So, the theory is that in the chaos of all this ghost madness, that night when Gozer like attacked and stuff, and all the people run around, all the ghosts escape, that he accidentally shoots a kid in the craziness. And like it's dark. Like if you remember in Die Hard, he's like, it was dark, I couldn't see nothing. He accidentally shoots a kid. So because of he's shooting the kid, he transfers to LA because we never get his name in Ghostbusters. So that's why it works even better.
Yeah.
So he transfers to LA and he becomes Sergeant, Al Powell. And he helps John McClane in Christmas in Die Hard. And he has no wife because if you watch him walking out of the store with all the Twinkies in Die Hard, he has no wedding ring. So he's eating them Twinkies. You know, more power to him. Um, but it explains his obsession with Twinkies because of speaking with Egon, like Twinkies are in his mind and stuff. Um, and because of shooting that dude at the end of Die Hard, he actually goes into a deep depression and after Die Hard and he gets or Die Hard 2 and he gets checked into a mental institution. And in the mental institution, he dreams up the idea of the character Carl Winslow. And Carl Winslow in his mind is like the cop he always wanted to be. And the family he always wanted to have. But in his dream, where he's like living the life he wants, his subconscious keeps bringing in this kid that keeps showing up and haunts him. And it's the kid that he shot. And that's Steve Urkel. So crazy theory I saw, but it worked. It kind of worked for me.
Oh, yeah, that definitely works. I looked at that and I'm like, "Oh my god, that actually makes sense."
Yeah, like it's a cool theory. So shout out to the fan whoever thought of that.
Yeah.
So back to Ghostbusters here. So Daryl Hannah, Denise Crosby. I'm not sure who Denise Crosby is. Julia Roberts, Kelly Lee Brock. Not sure who she is. Auditioned for the role of Dana Barrett, but Sigourney Weaver attracted the filmmakers' attention. There was resistance to her casting, though, because she had played serious roles, like serious female empowered roles, like Ripley in Alien. My black cat is actually named after Ripley in Alien. So I'm a huge Sigourney Weaver fan. So, but she revealed her comedic background that she actually studied at Yale in the School of Drama. And to kind of get the role, she started, on all fours and howling like a dog during her audition. Um, so that probably got her the role, woman, or whatever. So whatever it takes, whatever it takes. Um, and it turns out though that Sigourney suggested that character Dana Barrett became possessed by Zool. So Reitman said this solved many problems with the last act because it created stakes. So thank you, Sigourney Weaver. And it was also changed that so Dana was originally supposed to be just a model, but she was changed to a musician, which is very good because it gives her depth. She's not just some like bimbo in a movie. Because Dana is very much a woman of intelligence. She's a woman of rationale, and that's why she balances Bill Murray's character very well. So she's so intelligent that she finds ways to avoid her extremely annoying neighbor, Lewis Tully. So Lewis Tully is a bit of like a comedic part punchline in the movie. I did not know this actually, but John Candy was originally going to play Lewis Tully. He was offered, and that would have been interesting. But he told Ivan Reitman that he didn't understand the character. He suggested that Lewis Tully should have a German accent and have multiple German shepherds, which would have been really weird and like
Yeah.
it wouldn't work for the character. Like the character is like desperation. He's desperation in a nut. Uh, but and filmmakers felt the dogs wouldn't work. Like there was already too many, so Candy didn't go with the role. Enter in Rick Moranis, another Canadian actor that actually worked with like Candy in some Canadian show that I can't remember the name of it, but it's like a comedy. It was like the SNL Canada. Um, but Reitman worked with Rick Moranis before. He sent him the script, and Rick Moranis accepted it an hour later. And Moranis developed many aspects of the character, kind of like John Candy was trying, but these ideas worked. So he decided to make him an accountant. He wanted to give him a very boring job, like one of the most boring jobs ever, that would make him even more annoying and desperate. And Rick Moranis actually ad libbed this lengthy speech that Tully gave at the party, which I can't remember that speech, but Rick Moranis was a better choice for this. So so on to the in the cast. You know the phrase "Who you gonna call?" Well, they needed a character that's going to answer the dang phones while they're out doing their business. So they decided to add a secretary character to the film, Janine Melnitz. Now, originally, Sandra Bernhard turned down the role of the Ghostbusters secretary, Janine. I don't know Sandra too well, but she was like a big comedian back in the 80s. She was in The King of Comedy with De Niro and Scorsese, which probably like made her so much bigger. I know her personally from Roseanne as her friend Nancy, but I don't think it would have worked. Uh, Annie Potts was perfect.
Yep.
Uh, like without a doubt, Annie Potts was a better choice. And when she arrived on her first day of filming, Ivan Reitman actually rushed Annie Potts into the current scene that they were filming. And she quickly changed out of her street clothes. She borrowed a pair of glasses worn by the set dresser, which her character eventually just wore throughout the film and became part of the Janine character. So that's how we got Ghostbusters. What you want? So we got our heroes. We got our supporting cast. We got the tools. We got the talent, and we need villains. So enter Walter Peck. Walter Peck doesn't have a huge role in the movie, but what he does is very important to the story. So Walter Peck is a true dickhead. In fact, as Peter Venkin points out, the man has dick. He was played by William Atherton, and he was chosen for the role of Walter Peck after he appeared in Broadway. Peck's character is an EPA guy who's worried about the environmental impact of the Ghostbusters. He's also a guy that like really wants to move up in the system. Uh, he's basically a total a-hole. He has no sense of humor. He wants the Ghostbusters gone. So, but we need a bigger bad. We need a big bad. So enter Gozer the Gozerian. Get a more creative name than that. The role of the Sumerian god Gozer the Gozerian was envisioned as a business suited architect. But that idea would eventually be switched to a character only spoken about in this movie, which would come into effect in later in Ghostbusters Afterlife. But it was a cult leader named Ivo Chandler. So try to remember that name, Ivo Chandler. He'll become important later. So the character of Gozer, I did not know this, was originally intended for Paul Rubens. If you don't know who Paul Rubens is, he was Mr. Pee Wee Herman. So when Pee Wee passed on the idea, they got a Yugoslavian actress named Slavica Jovan, and she was cast, and the character changed to one inspired by the looks of Grace Jones and David Bowie. If you don't know who Grace Jones is, she was like a big woman bodybuilder type scary lady in the 80s. She was in Conan the Destroyer. If you can get a reference. The voice of Gozer was an actress named Patty Edwards, and ish, her voice was just dubbed over Jovan's uh, Slavic accent. So we have a cast. They started shooting the movie in New York City on October 28th, 1983. You might as well just wait to Halloween. I mean, but on the first day, Ivan Reitman brought set still unsure if he was if he even read the script. So he was going to do the movie, but had no idea if he read the script. Bill Murray, what the hell? Filming in New York lasted about 6 weeks, and they finished just before Christmas. They wanted to finish before Christmas because they didn't want the winter to hit the movie in December. It would have been a nightmare because in the mid 80s, New York was considered very risky, very dirty. Many saw New York in the 80s as anonymous with fiscal disaster, violence, crime, and Los Angeles was seen as the center of entertainment. So New York was Gotham City, and LA was Metropolis. So, but Ivan Reitman wanted it to be the movie to be in New York because he wanted New York to be his, like he wanted the Ghostbusters to be his New York movie, which worked out great. For me to this day, like I still consider New York like the center of the world, or at least my world that I'm living
Yeah.
in, because the Ghostbusters are from New York City. Superman the movie, I was filmed in New York. Tyler will probably correct me on that, but you see the Statue of Liberty around. Spider Man's from New York City. Daredevil's from New York City. Pretty much all Marvels in New York City. Every Scorsese movie's in New York City. New York is the city. And I hope for my 40th birthday though that I do get to go to LA. That's my hope. I
Yeah,
want to go to LA in my life,
that would be cool.
and I got to take you to New York City, boy. Um, so some scenes of New York City were filmed before December. And interesting note, the library scene, where in the beginning of the movie, was filmed in a New York public library, and they had to finish all their filming before 10 a.m. when the library would open. So that's interesting. so imagine my wife being approached by a movie studio and they're like, "We want to film in the library," and my wife being like, "Oh well, you got till 10 o'clock when the library opens," whatever. Um,
Yeah.
the iconic firehouse with Ghostbusters is actually a real life firehouse, Hook and Ladder Company Number 8. It's in a neighborhood of Tribeca in New York City, and you can actually go to it. Because it's an active fire station, they didn't film inside the fire station. And if you visit New York, outside the fire station is a Ghostbuster sign, which is pretty dang cool. And I think my wife wanted to take me there one day, but I don't think we got to, which really is because New York is a little bit crazy. But anyway, when they entered the winter months, they filmed the rest of the movie in L.A. to finish production because they didn't want to deal with the winter. And because the movie had such a short schedule and they only had 13 months, Ivan Reitman was so frustrated he had to edit the movie as he shot it. So that meant he could take stuff out of the movie that they filmed, but he couldn't like add anything to the movie because he didn't have. So very frustrating for a director, big time. Interesting note here about that scene I mentioned earlier about Ray getting pleasured by a ghost. um, it turns out, for some reason, I don't know. It turns out that Ray was actually supposed to have a love interest in this movie, and it was supposed to be a female ghost. So they're going to add this female ghost character. Ray was going to have a relationship with her, and there was supposed to be like a sexual encounter, but they cut out and they just kept a little bit of the footage of the sexual encounter. Uh, but it was supposed to be bigger, I guess. And I just once again I hate that scene. It throws it off. It's just so weird. Just
Yeah.
freaking hate it. So I don't know.
Shouldn't be there. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe Dan Aykroyd just needed a date. I don't know. Really
Yeah.
weird.
All the
But this movie,
stress.
what's that?
All the stress
All the
going
stress.
on.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It's so weird. Um, the movie was full of iconic ghosts, as we know, and no ghost is more iconic than Slimer and the Marshmallow Man. Slimer actually wasn't named Slimer until the real Ghostbusters cartoon, which we'll talk about in a bit. The special effects was created by a guy named Steve Johnson, who worked on Poltergeist. So another thing to note is that while this movie was being made, there was like 630, or maybe it was 130. I apologize. Special effects scenes that they had to do, but all these other studios were working on other movies, so they didn't have like a special effects studio to be able to work on stuff. So they had to like take what they could get. So they hired a guy named Steve Johnson, and he created Slimer, and in about 6 months, and it cost approximately about $300,000 just to create Slimer. And when he created Slimer, Slimer had a very distinct smell to him that smelled like onions. So his nickname at the time, his name at the time until Real Ghostbusters was just Onion Head Ghost because he didn't have a name. Uh, Now, fun fact I found out is Steve was struggling to complete the design within those 6 months, and he was getting near the end of the 6 months. And executives were interfering with him and telling him like it had to look more like uh, John Belushi. Well, this is the tribute to John Belushi. So this dude apparently took 3 grams of cocaine in one day, and he finished Slimer in one night. So yeah, cocaine will do it. Uh,
Yeah.
uh, the Marshmallow Man was designed with the idea of the Michelin Man and the Pillsbury Doughboy merging together, which makes perfect sense.
Mhm.
A stuntman named Tony Easter wore the suit from the Marshmallow Man, and Godzilla was an inspiration for movement in the movie.
Yeah, you could tell.
Totally, absolutely, absolutely. Um, there were 18 suits made for the Marshmallow Man. It took about 25 to $30,000 to make Marshmallow Man, and as they filmed, the suits like got all burnt as part of the special effects, like when they caught him on fire. Um, at the end of the movie, the marshmallow rained down on everybody. At the end of the movie was actually shaving cream. That I did know. And originally it was like 150 pounds of shaving cream that they used, but it like knocked out one of the stuntmen. Like it was too much weight. so
Jeez.
so they reduced it in half to like 75 pounds of shaving cream. And there's so much shaving cream it actually gave people like actors and people in the movie a rash. Like it was too much. Like
Yeah.
I thought shaving cream was supposed to prevent like rashes, but apparently some chemical in this, I don't know, whatever. Another fun fact is the original Library Ghost puppet that they had, like when she reaches out and puts her arms out, was actually too scary. It was scarier than what we got, and they used that ghost in the movie Friday Night, which is pretty cool. Um, Now, other interesting facts about making this movie, I highly recommend you check out movies that made us on Netflix. There's probably some things that I missed, and yeah. So, Steve, can you tell us about the equipment that the Ghostbusters use?
Yeah, I could certainly can. Hardware consultant Stephen Dane was responsible for designing most of the Ghostbusters iconic equipment, including the proton packs used to capture ghosts and their vehicle, the Ecto Mobile or Ecto 1. The equipment had to be designed and built in the 6 weeks before filming began in September of '83. The proton packs were inspired by a military issue flamethrower. That's cool. The proton packs consisted of a handheld proton stream firing neutrino wand connected by a hose to a backpack said to contain a nuclear accelerator. In this film, we don't really see or hear where these fully come from. All we get is that scene where they are eating Chinese takeout, and you can see Egon working on something on the table with a screwdriver. On-screen models of the proton packs were
Yeah.
made from a
So I totally missed that. So many times I watched Ghostbusters. So many times I watched Ghostbusters, and I was like, where the program packs come from? and I missed all the times of Ghostbusters or Egon working with the screwdriver while they're eating on the proton pack.
Huh. I
I
never
missed
noticed that
so many
either.
times. Yeah, it's like because you're focused on them eating and talking, you're not watching Egon work on it.
What he's doing.
Yep,
I
but
mean, they do kinda show that in that female one. They actually show
yes, which
the
is the only
econ.
thing one of the only things I appreciate about that movie.
Yeah.
Like,
But,
really. But
the
yeah.
on-screen models of the proton packs were made from a fiberglass shell with an aluminum backplate bolted to a United States Army backpack frame. Each pack weighed approximately 30 pounds with the batteries for lighting installed and strained the actors' backs during the long shoots. Damn. Two later versions were made, a hollow one with the surface details for wide shots and a foam rubber version for action scenes. The fiberglass props were created by special effects supervisor Chuck Gaspar based on Dane's design. Gaspar used rubber molds to create identical fiberglass shells. The neutrino wand had a flash bulb at the tip, giving animators an origin point for the proton streams. Fake walls laced with pyrotechnics were used to create the damage of the proton streams. The psychokinetic energy meter (PKE meter) prop was built using an Iona SP-1 handheld shoe polisher as a base, to which lights and electronics were added. So, in real life ghost hunting, what would you consider the PKE meter? Because I go and do that stuff.
Well,
I'm trying to
PKE
think, what
well,
would
it's
that be, the
what
EMF?
yeah, I guess so. Like, it's the thing where, you're seeing the levels of, like, you hear you're I don't know how to say it's the thing that you hold where you're seeing, like, the bar spike,
Yeah.
like, of where energy is. So
Okay.
like,
So, yeah,
how you do
probably like,
the goal and, like, it raises the bar?
mhm.
In the Ghostbusters PKE meter, like, there's, like,
I know,
the
I was
green, red,
asking
orange.
you what in real life would that be like?
I guess the EMF? Yeah. I
That's what
forget
I was
what
thinking,
PKE
okay.
stands for. Pro pro
Psychokinetic
Oh,
energy
yeah, it's
meter.
right there. Yeah. It's in our notes. Yeah, duh. Energy meter. So EMF would be electrical magnetic
Field.
uh field. So yeah, it would be like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
The PKE meter prop was designed and built by John Zabrocki of Modern Props in partnership with an outside fabricator. The technology was designed to not be overly fancy, emphasizing the characters' scientific backgrounds combined with the homemade nature of their equipment. The Ectomobile was in the first draft of Aykroyd's script, and he and John DeFekus developed some early concepts for the car. Dane developed fully detailed drawings for the interior and exterior and supervised the transformation of the 1959 Cadillac Miller Meteor ambulance conversion into the Ectomobile.
Say
According
that
to
5 times fast.
yeah, according to Aykroyd, the actual vehicle was an ambulance that we converted to a hearse and then converted to an ambulance. Earlier concepts
Weird.
feature a huh?
That's just weird. Like, so they take an ambulance, convert it into a hearse, and then convert a little bit to the ambulance. So
I guess
it's
they
a
need
hearse
the
ambulance.
back. Yeah, I guess they need. Oh yeah, I
The,
don't.
the Deathmobile, whatever.
Yeah. Um. Early concepts featured a black car with purple and white strobe lights, giving it a supernatural glow. But this idea was scrapped after cinematographer Laszlo Kovacs noted that dark paint would not film well at night. Which I agree. I like the white better. The concept always also had fantastic features such as the ability to dematerialize and travel interdimensionally.
Wow.
They they didn't really tack that into that.
No, oh no, no,
Okay.
no.
But Dane designed its high-tech roof array with objects including a directional antenna, an air conditioning unit, and storage boxes. Because of its size, The roof rack was shipped to Manhattan on an airplane while the car was transferred to the East Coast by train. Sound designers Richard Beggs created the siren from a recording of a leopard snarl cut and played backwards. In the Ghostbusters video game, the roof is actually a giant trap. In the future, more equipment will be added to the car. Now let's talk about how the movie did.
Yes, sir.
Ghost Ghostbusters was screened for test audiences on February 3rd of 84, mainly to see if the comedy worked. Reitman was concerned audiences would not react well to the Marshmallow Man because it deviated from the realism of the rest of the film. Okay. 200 people were recorded off the streets to view the film in a theater on the Burbank lot. It was during the opening library scene Reitman knew the film worked. Audiences reacted with fear, laughs, and applauses as the librarian ghost transformed into a monster. The fateful marshmallow scene was met with a similar reaction, and Reitman knew he would not have to perform any reshoots. With audiences, they had a winner. The screening for the big shots fared less well. Our boy Price recalled laughing at the rest of the audience sat deadpan. Murray and Aykroyd's agent Michael Ovitz recalled an executive telling him, "Don't worry, we all make mistakes." They did not make a mistake. What helped was brand awareness. In the months before it debuted, a teaser trailer focused on the No Ghost logo, helping it become recognizable far in advance and generate interest in the film without mentioning its title or its stars. Columbia spent approximately 10 million on marketing, including 2.25 million on prints, 1 million on promotional materials, and 7 million on advertising and miscellaneous costs, including a 150,000 premiere for a hospital and the hotel costs for the press. Included in the budget and marketing costs, it was estimated the film would have to make at least 80 million to turn a profit. Ghostbusters premiered on June 7th of 84 in Westwood, Los Angeles, before its wide release the following day across 1,339 theaters in the United States and Canada. During its opening weekend, the film earned 13.6 million, which is like an average of 10 grand per theater. It finished as number one film of the weekend ahead of Gremlins and Indiana Jones, The Temple of Doom. In the third week of release, it finished as number one film of the weekend ahead of Gremlins and Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. The film stayed number one for 2 more months, grossing 146.5 million before being outed by Purple Rain in early August. Ghostbusters would regain their number one spot back the following week before spending the next 5 weeks in number two behind the action film Red Dawn. Ghostbusters remained among the top three grossing films for 16 straight weeks before beginning a gradual decline and falling from the top 10 by late October. So the 80s movies were in cinemas really long because they left theaters in January of 85 after 30 weeks.
That's insane. Like in modern day, a movie stays in the theater maybe 2 months, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, very
Unless
maybe.
more movies like are coming out, but like 30 weeks, what the hell? That's
That's a
crazy.
long time.
That's a long time.
It made 229 million, making it the second highest grossing film of 1984, just 5 million behind our boy Eddie Murphy's action comedy Beverly Hills Cop, which was released in mid-December. Ghostbusters beat Animal House as the highest grossing comedy film ever till Beverly Hills Cop came along. The whole the worldwide total for Ghostbusters was 282.2 million, and reportedly Bill Murray got between 20 to 30 million from that movie.
Jiminy
In
Christmas. That's crazy.
yeah, he's pretty much yeah. In 1984 was extremely iconic year for films with Gremlins, Terminator, Nightmare on Elm Street, Romancing the Stone, and The Neverending Story. It is also the first year in box office history four films, including Ghostbusters, grossed over 100 million. Ghostbusters would be re-released in the USA and Canada in August of '85, earning an additional 9.5 million over just 5 weeks. This would raise it to surpass Beverly Hills Cop as the most successful comedy of the '80s. So just to be sure, the movie's budget was 25 to 30 million, and the movie made 295 million. So I think it did pretty damn good. The movie opened to positive reviews. Robert Ebert gave it 3.5 out of 4 stars and said it was a rare example of successfully combining a special effects driven blockbuster with dialogue. Needless to say, though the movie was a hit, the movie was nominated for 2 Academy Awards in '85 for Best Original Song by Ray Parker Jr. for Ghostbusters and for visual effects. It would lose to Stevie Wonder's I Just Called to Say I Love You for the movie The Woman in Red. And it would lose to effects for Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Bill Murray was also nominated for Golden Globe for Best Actor, but he lost to Dudley Moore for Mickey and Maude. Now it's time for some controversy. Ray Parker Jr.'s Ghostbusters spent 3 weeks at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart in '84 and 21 weeks on the chart period. The song is estimated to have added 20 million to the film's box office. The song was completely iconic to this. Probably one of the top
Do-do-do-do-do.
everybody
Do-do-do-do.
knows that.
Everybody knows it.
Probably one of the top 5 most iconic movie songs. Another iconic movie song is The Power of Love by Huey Lewis and the news for the film Back to the Future. Maybe you heard that film. Well, funny thing, shortly after Ghostbusters released, Huey Lewis sued Parker Jr. for plagiarizing the 1983 song I Want a New Drug. That case was settled out of court in 1985. The songs are barely similar. You could kind of hear it when Huey starts the first verse, but it's not completely spun on as, say, Ice Ice Baby compared to Under Pressure. Those are exactly the same. Back to
So
Stu.
so so the interview in the '90s that I remember seeing on MTV News, they interviewed Vanilla Ice, and Kurt Loder or whatever asked him, like, "Hey, would you say that your song, Ice Ice Baby is very similar to Under Pressure by Queen and David Bowie?" And he's like, "No, no, no. Their song goes bang 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 da da dang dang. My song goes bang 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 da da dang dang. Ch." Not similar, not at all."
Oh my god.
Anyway, back to suing people.
So after Huey sued him, Parker Jr. later sued Lewis for breaching a confidentiality agreement about the case. Hey, busting makes people feel good. Anyone ever see the movie Casper from the '90s? Iconic flick. Well, in 1984, the filmmakers were also sued by Harvey Cartoons, the owner of Casper, the Friendly Ghost, for 50 million and the destruction of all copies of the film. Harvey alleged the Ghostbusters logo was based on their character Fatso. Yeah, I can see that. The case was decided in Columbia's favor, obviously, because Ghostbusters is still here. Thank Gozer. So after Ghostbusters, Murray left acting for 4 years. He described the success of Ghostbusters as a phenomenon that would recover his biggest accomplishment. Murray was overwhelmed by the film's success and heartbroken over the failure of that Razor's Edge film, which I never even heard of or even knew about. So Murray avoided central roles in films until the 1988 Christmas comedy film Scrooge, which put Murray back with ghosts.
That is actually my favorite Christmas film. I love that movie. Bill Murray Scrooge, like a
Yeah.
cab driver. That's the Ghost of Christmas Past. My favorite. go back to Jersey, you moron. and,
Uh-huh.
and when he's like, face it, Frank, you don't know who you are, you don't know what you want, and you don't know what the heck's going on.
Yeah, that
Like,
one that's a classic. I love
love
that.
love that movie. Did you know that it was actually directed by Richard Donner?
Mm-mm.
Richard Donner being the director of Superman.
Oh, really?
Yep, yep. He directed
I did
Scrooge,
not know.
which probably why it's even better.
Yeah.
But back to you.
But as for the director, in a 1989 interview, Reitman said he was upset at the little respect he felt Ghostbusters received and his work was not taken seriously, believing many dismissed it as just another action comedy. Ernie Hudson held mixed feelings about Ghostbusters. He regretted the butchering of his character from the original script and felt Ghostbusters did not improve his career as he hoped or been promised. In a 2014 interview, he said, I love the character and he's got some great lines, but I felt the guy was just kind of there. I'm very thankful that fans appreciated the Winston character, but it's always been very frustrating, kind of a love hate thing, I guess. Not to interrupt, but watching that first film and
Yeah.
even the second film, I'm like, he doesn't really do much. He just kind of is in the background. Oh yeah.
Right.
Ah,
Right.
like he didn't really do anything
And
other
that's
than
and that's why Winston has always been like the least favorite Ghostbuster because he doesn't do
that's what
anything.
I mean. He doesn't have any like
Yep.
story behind him kind of.
Yep. Like they gave him more lines in two. They gave him a little bit more,
A
but
little bit
like,
more.
he doesn't get his respect until frickin' like he doesn't get respect until Afterlife. Really, pretty much. Like
Yeah.
he they did him solid now, but like
Now, yeah.
for like nearly 40 years, like no respect. Like
No,
I
not
even
at
asked
all.
you, I was like, who's your least favorite Ghostbuster? You said Winston, but then I had to like
Mm,
tell you like
yeah.
Winston
Yeah.
has a purpose, and I I I'll eventually ask you who your least favorite Ghostbuster is, and I think you'll like my answers.
Okay.
Who my least favorite Ghostbuster is. But anyway, and so it's really good to see Winston finally get respect. Like Ernie
Yeah.
Hudson is just a class act. If you ever get to meet him, the dude's a class act. So, last controversy I just wanted to mention was the dude that played Walter Peck. Fans would who would see him would shout, "You have no dick," and they would do that well into the '90s. So, good times. So if anything that Ghostbusters did, and it did many things, but it 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 proved that the selling of Star Wars toys was not a fluke. So like Star Wars toys were like the first major toy merchandise for movies that did insane. But when Ghostbusters put out toys and merchandise, it blew up the market. So this is what like sold movies selling toys and merchandising. Tyler and I talked about this a lot, like how a lot of movies today, like they have no toys. Like when we were kids, 30 some years ago, like there was toys for everything. Like, you had Ghostbusters toys, you had Star Wars toys, you had X-Men toys when the movies come out, you had Spider-Man stuff. Everything came out had a toy. Even the Disney movies, Aladdin toys, whatever, and Mrs. Doubtfire toys. You had everything,
Yeah.
you know, but nowadays you just
Nothing.
don't. You don't have nothing.
No, I remember you having a lot of the Ghostbusters stuff though. I remember you had the firehouse.
That firehouse was my base of operations for every single action figure I had.
Uh-huh.
That's what it is. But damn it, but freaking Angie, um, eventually, like um, somehow I lost one of the doors to the firehouse. I lost the fire pole. There was like some parts that eventually would be missing, and I don't know if Angie broke it or One of my friends stole pieces just to be. I don't know what happened, but like I want that firehouse again. I want it. I want it back,
Yeah,
and I want XO1. I don't know where the hell I put it because I have a small house, but like I just want it. One day I'll get a bigger house, maybe. Who knows? Um, but those Ghostbuster toys and that firehouse, man. I didn't have Ecto One, but that firehouse was just, uh,
yeah,
it
it was
just,
fun.
uh, just yeah. Um, so that's what happened to Ghostbusters in our hour and 20 minutes. but all right. So this, we know this is a mega episode. It's a long one. So before Ghostbusters 1, I want to tell you about some of the characters and what was going on before the first film. So I like to add a lot of characters' backstory is included in Ghostbusters comic, and a lot of it is really in the real Ghostbusters cartoon. So some of this stuff might not actually, well, some of the stuff might not be considered canon in the movies. They don't really like elaborate on it, but and there's some stuff we might miss. So starting with Peter, this is what happened with Peter before we meet him in the first film. So Peter is born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. Peter Venkman is one of three professors of parapsychology on the Ghostbusters team. He holds PhD in parapsychology, psychology, um, and he rarely uses scientific knowledge, despite the fact that he learned in fields like metallurgy, engineering, and physics. The papers of his research at Columbia University are very sloppily written. People like don't even think that he's a legit scientist, and he might not. He is a huge lazy man, and he flirts with his female students, as seen at the beginning of Ghostbusters 1. Though never shown in films, his dialogue sometimes implies that he reads porn like Playboy and Penthouse, and he watches porn, which, yeah, probably. We see a poster of Marilyn Monroe taped to the wall in the laboratory that he shares with Egon and Ray at the university, so that probably belonged to him. His personal interests were actually like originally his professional interests were actually focused on paranormal phenomena like ESP, but he initially doesn't appear to actually believe in ghosts until he sees one in the first movie. Despite Peter's lack of serious attitude from time to time, he has developed plans that help the Ghostbusters save the day. He is shrewd, smart than the more academically inclined Ray and Egon. And Peter is clearly the extrovert to Egon and Ray's introverts. Peter serves as the front man and leader of the group and possesses more social abilities than his friends. For instance, he's the one who can persuade the mayor to release him when they're arrested. And he's a sweet talker. We find out a little bit more about Peter in like Real Ghostbusters. So in the Real Ghostbusters series, Peter's womanizing is toned down somewhat, though he's equipped to approach attractive women. He retains his quick wit, his sarcasm, and his arrogance is played up more. Now in the Real Ghostbusters cartoon, he's not like the official leader of the group like he is in the movies, but he's the closest thing. They just don't like say he's a leader. Um, and he mostly decides like what cases the Ghostbusters are going to take. Um, he reinforces the prospect of Ghostbusters being in business and, with rare exceptions, opposing ghosts without the promise of equity. Peter is all about the money. Like he's not going to do it to be a hero. He wants the money. But there are like Peter's like the Han Solo of the group. Uh, Peter is also the target of Slimer's attention. So he's originally opposed to the idea of Slimer living in the firehouse, but he quickly develops a love-hate relationship with Slimer. Mostly hates him though because he's slimed all the time. Because Slimer really loves Peter. Uh, when we get some backstory to Peter though in the episodes, Venkman's Ghost Repellers, the episode Cold Cash, and Hot Water, and the Treasure of the Sierra Tamale, which feature what introduced Peter's father, who's a con artist, businessman, who can't make an honest dollar, and he was often away on business during Peter's childhood. As mentioned in the episode Xmas Marks the Spot, he's depicted as selfish, even obnoxious. His relationship with Peter is estranged. So kind of like my dad. Um, but his this like explains why he has his personality. So I appreciate the real Ghostbusters elaborating on it. Um, Peter is apparently a Scorpio, as mentioned in the episode Mean Green Teen Machine, and he also has a obsession and love with trains. Apparently, Peter actually even studied engineering in college for about 2 years before he discovered it had nothing to do with trains. So, uh, in the show Real Ghostbusters, Peter is voiced by Lorenzo Music during the first season. And at the start of the second season, Music is replaced by Dave Collier. So Dave Collier is actually the guy that played Joey Gladstone on Full House, if you don't know who that guy is. But he was replaced by Dave Collier because Bill Murray complained to the studio that the character of Peter Venkman, voiced by Lorenzo, sounded too much like Garfield the cat, which he did. But funny, ironic, is Bill Murray would voice Garfield in the 2004 live action film and its 2006 sequel. So that's pretty dang funny. Um, Now, talking about Ray. Ray is an expert on paranormal history and metallurgy. He's characterized as like pretty much childlike enthusiasm towards his work and his and he's very excited about paranormal activity. As a result, Peter once during the movie referred to Ray as the heart of the Ghostbusters, and he definitely is. Ray has extensive knowledge of the Bible, apparently, to the point of quoting the Bible in the movie, and I think it's in Ghostbusters too. Um, and but the problem is he doesn't quote the Bible right because he says Revelation 7:12, end of the world, blah blah blah. Revelation 7:12, I had to look it up, actually says, Amen, praise and glory and wisdom and thanks and honor and power and strength be to our God forever and ever. Amen. Now, Revelation 6:12 says, which is closest to what Ray and Winston actually do quote, is I watched as he opened the sixth seal. There was a great earthquake. The sun turned black like sackcloth made of goat hair. The whole moon turned blood red. So that's what they're really quoting. 6:12, not 7:12. So they made a mistake. So even though Ray claims to know the Bible, Ray is an agnostic. Commenting when asked if he believes in God, he says, never met him. But if someone asks you if you're a God, you say yes. Is revealed in the Ghostbusters video game, though, that Ray attended seminary at some stage in his life. He is known for his wordy and overly technical explanations of scientific and paranormal phenomena, and Ray, along with Egon, is responsible for pioneering Ghostbusters theories, designing and building equipment, which most of that goes to Egon. Um, and in the second film, it's revealed that he is very fond of takeout food like pizza, Asian, Greek, Mexican cuisine. But anyway, we also find out in Real Ghostbusters that Ray has an extended family, which has different nationalities ranging from Swiss to Scottish to Russian, including his Aunt Lois, who appears in the episode The Spirit of Aunt Lois. And he has Uncle Andrew Macmillan of Dunkeld, who is from Scotland. Uh, and Ray was actually born in the Bronx in 1959, according to the episode Sis and Ghost, and it's about time. He later moves to Morrisville, which appears in the episode Homeward Ray. And we find out that Ray had a childhood crush that was a brunette named Elaine. Um, During the show's run, he's the closest member of the team to being a pilot, and he won a free flying lesson in 1976. As mentioned in the episode, Can't Take It With You. Sometimes Ray's last name is misspelled, just like Winston's last name is spelled, and they forget like the E, or they forget the Z or whatever. Ray is only Ghostbuster to wear the original beige jumpsuit uniform in both the animated series and the films, while the other Ghostbusters wore color-coded jumpsuits in the animated series, brown for Venkman, light blue for Winston, and gray blue for Egon, which was supposed to differentiate them. So as far as Egon, Egon Spinkler is a tall, lanky, awkward member of the team responsible for main theoretical framework for their paranormal quantum studies. Having earned over a dozen advanced degrees, including parapsychology, nuclear engineering from New York University, and MIT. Respectfully, he's demonstrated as a it's shown that he kind of has kind of might like Janine, but like he's not really interested in relationships as much. Um, and he's very introverted and he relies on Peter to kind of do all the talking. Egon is the most serious and rigid member of the team. His hobbies, Egon Stacy collects spores, moles, and fungus, and claims that as a child, the only toy he's ever had was part of a slinky, which he straightened out. Implied that in the second movie, he is a junk food junkie, which is why he always brings up Twinkies and references kind of food. Uh, he's also the builder of the technology. So in the first film, there is a scene that we mentioned where he's working on a proton pack while everybody like eats egg rolls and stuff. So as despite being like a stereotypical timid professor like figure, one important thing about Egon is prone to violent reactions when he's pushed too far. So like when Walter Peck in the first movie um, kind of like gets on them, Egon blows up and kind of like jumps at Peck. So Egon does have a bit of a anger side. So in real Ghostbusters, we find out Egon's hair was actually changed from brown in the films uh, to to a blonde. Um, and this was explained as they didn't want everyone to have dark hair, and they wanted the characters to each have like a distinguishing feature so the audience could recognize them. So that's why Egon has blonde hair and the pompadour, which is just iconic and pretty cool. Uh, Now, despite Egon leaning towards science, Egon actually has a family history of witchcraft. He has three ancestors: Zedekiah, Eli, and Ezekiel, and apparently they were wizards, which he's not so much ashamed as strongly. He just strongly considers it irrelevant, mainly because he sees science as relevant. Egon's faith in science is also tested in one episode where the Ghostbusters get abducted into the ghost world by the ghosts of Al Capone. Egon's scientific equipment fails until he's told by former capos of Capone um, that only magic can harm ghosts in the ghost world, as opposed to science harming them. Thus, Egon is like forced to accept wizardry methods of his ancestors to defeat Capone. He is the love interest of Janine Melnitz, the secretary, in the first film and both the animated series. And Ghostbusters 2, they throw this out because Harold Ramis didn't like the side plot idea. Um, Egon sometimes appears to be like unaware of Janine's romantic interest in him, but at times he does display having some feelings for her, such as when he gives her geranium as a gift when she expresses interest in plants, which actually backfires horribly when it's revealed that the geranium was possessed by ghosts and nearly destroyed her apartment, along with much of Brooklyn. Though Egon managed to thwart the ghost, Janine angrily told Egon for the damages to her home. And and he also rushes to her rescue in the episode Janine, You Changed. He also embraces her in Ghost Busted after she was kidnapped and held for ransom by a gangster. And he becomes jealous when she's briefly involved with a slimy businessman named Paul Smart. Um, Good Cry Uncle, Egon's well meaning but skeptical Uncle Cyrus visits him. And since he doesn't believe in Egon's work with the Ghostbusters, he doesn't believe it's real scientific work and it's a waste of Egon's genius. He tries to make Egon move back to Ohio. where Egon grew up, to work at his uncle's lab. But fortunately, after his uncle accidentally releases the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man from the containment unit, he realizes that ghosts are real and he accepts Egon's work. Um, Throughout the series, Egon would actually have his soul switched with that of a demon and have his molecular structure destabilized to the point that it strained him in the netherworld. And he gets rescued by others. And yeah. Important moment for Egon, though, and one of the best episodes of the Real Ghostbusters, and most of that is in season one of Real Ghostbusters, are kind of like the best. Is revealed in the episode "The Boogeyman Cometh," and this is an important episode. like, so it's revealed in Boogeyman Cometh. As a child, Egon was stalked by the Boogeyman, and this is why he became interested in studying the paranormal. So I hope they do that in a movie once in the future. Like they kind of bring back that Egon had notes on the boogeyman. But Egon was like stalked as a child by a supernatural monster that feeds on the fear of children, hides in their closet, and was particularly fond of Egon's fear. And Egon has to confront and defeat the boogeyman. Really awesome. Really, really good episode.
Yeah, that boogeyman freaked me out as a kid.
Oh gosh, huge head, just
I
like
I've
yeah.
been clamoring for like I really want them to do that in like live action, like a boogeyman thing
Yes.
sometime. Oh,
That and one other character we'll get to in a moment.
okay.
But I think you know which one I'm going to refer to.
Mm.
Yeah, they got to do Boogeyman and then they got to do one other character. Um, but yeah, so Egon was voiced by Maurice LaMarche, and LaMarche has said in interviews that he was instructed to not do an impression of Harold Ramis, uh, and they didn't want that, but however, he got the job anyway. Okay, so on to our boy Winston. So, in the original script for Ghostbusters, Winston Zedmore was intended to be part of the Ghostbusters team from the beginning, and he was supposed to be an Air Force major or something, like a demolitions expert. This was revised in different drafts of the script after Ernie Hudson was cast. His character was originally intended to represent the audience, but it was rewritten to be an outsider and a late addition to the Ghostbusters team. He's the only member of the team who did not have an advanced degree, although it's later shown that he acquired his doctorate in Ghostbusters, the video game. So in Ghostbusters, the video game, it reveals that he did become a doctor eventually. Um, so many details of Winston were built up in the real Ghostbusters. No surprise. The episode Cry Uncle clarifies that in the show's continuity, Winston does have no doctorate, but he also informs Egon's special Uncle Cyrus that before becoming a Ghostbuster, he too doubted the existence of ghosts. In season one, of course, in Mr. Sandman Dreamy a Dream, Winston states that unlike his three colleagues, he might not be a scientist, um, but and which it causes him. Sorry, he states that unlike his three colleagues, he's not a scientist, so he's very unsure of his abilities as he does things. So, and he doesn't think that he can fix stuff. But when they face the Sandman, um, he's encouraged by a dream version of Albert Einstein, and he meets the challenge and he wins the day for the team. So, in the episode "The Ghostbusters in Paris," it's revealed that Winston was once a construction worker before joining the Ghostbusters. This idea just seems to be further reinforced in the episode "The Brooklyn Triangle," when Ghostbusters respond to a construction site headed by his father. This would indicate that it might have been a family business until Winston decided to join the Ghostbusters. So, in a lot of reports, uh, like quit a construction job to become a Ghostbuster. So it goes right into it. Um, in the episode "Devil to Pay," Winston mentions having a girlfriend, though she's never seen on screen or during the series. In the episode Night Game, he's shown to love baseball, and he has a favorite team called the Jaguars. In several other episodes, it is shown that Winston loves mystery novels, detective stories, and in the episode Boo Done It, he's the one that solves a mystery novel left behind by a deceased mystery writer who's similar to Agatha Christie. In Doctor Doctor, it's revealed that Zedmore likes literature, including the works of Herman Melville and Charles Dickens. Uh, in the episode Brooklyn Triangle, as we mentioned, it's revealed that Winston's father works in construction, and yada, yada, yada. Interesting part, uh, in the episode The Moaning Stones, it's revealed that Winston is like the reincarnation of a shaman warrior called Shima Baku. And in that episode, they fight this immortal demon known as the Undying One. And the Undying One has the power to resurrect bones of dead people and like use it as like, whatever. And reincarnation of this shaman warrior. And that's pretty interesting. And they never really bring it up later. More about Winston. Winston is the primary driver of Ecto One, and he's like the guy that takes care of the car. As a result, he's almost shown driving the car in the real Ghostbusters cartoon. He's also seen performing routine maintenance, such as oil changes on the vehicle. An episode of the cartoon where the Ghostbusters are sent back in time to the 50s, Winston sees Ecto 1 in its original role as a hearse. Uh, and he tells the Ghostbusters he knows that vehicle anywhere. And he actually says to the car, "Hang in there, Ecto. Better days are ahead for you." That's cool. That's sweet. Uh, uh, Zedmore is very fond of that car. In Ghostbusters Afterlife, they would further this point as Winston can be seen fueling the car in the film multiple times, examining the vehicle's condition after several years of neglect. He was heard mumbling, "What happened to you?" After the car, at the car after finally defeating Gozer. Never mind. Sorry. Winston later personally guides Ecto One back to the recently required firehouse after they restore it in the mid-credit scene of Afterlife. So, Janine Melnitz. Okay. Uh, is revealed in Real Ghostbusters, of course, that Janine is the youngest daughter of a working class family from Brooklyn. Her parents, sister, nephew, and grandmother all live in some neighborhood called Carnesi or whatever. She's remained in Brooklyn Heights, where she grew up, and tends to wear loud, blocky jewelry. And in early seasons, she wears a miniskirt. Like it's like definitive of Janine that she's a Brooklyn girl. In 1987, Janine owns a red Volkswagen Beetle convertible, which is severely damaged after being loaned to the Ghostbusters in the episode Beneath the Streets. Um, and None of that's really important, so I'm going to move on from that. On numerous occasions, though, Janine has taken up a proton pack, which we do see in the trailer of Frozen Empire that she might be soon up as a Ghostbuster. So in the episodes of Janine's Genie, Mr. Salmon Dreamy a Dream, Janine's Day Off, Janine Melnitz's Ghostbuster, and Jailbusters, she suits up as a Ghostbuster. So she is an important part of the scene. Um, but her color of her suit is like inconsistent. Um, and sometimes she just doesn't wear a jumpsuit at all. She just throws on a proton pack. Um, Now, Janine has a sharp, sarcastic sense of humor, has been known to make jokes about the Ghostbusters, either to their faces or under their breath. But most of the time, she usually gets along with Ray and Winston, and she kind of has this brother-sister relationship with Peter, and she gives them the most crap. Now, this is important, and this is what hurts my heart. Significant changes to the character, though, occur over the course of Real Ghostbusters. So in the first two seasons, her betrayal is almost identical to the rude security, boss portrayed in the film. However, the production of season three um, saw the voice of Janine be replaced by Kath Sosi or whatever, replaced Laura Summers as Janine voice actor. So her Brooklyn accent completely goes away. Her appearance and personality are softened, uh, basically because after the release of Ghostbusters 2, and they changed her appearance to match that movie. So in the season 6 episode, Janine, You've Changed, it's revealed that the changes of the past 3 years were the result of her wishes to a demon named Makeoverus Lottabucks. Whatever. uh, um, it's it's a weird choice, and I kind of hate it. Uh, so not a fan of Janine's character changes, but the characters Dana Barrett and Louis Tully are not in real Ghostbusters, so that's important to note. And this concludes part one of our history of the Ghostbusters. Make sure you tune into part two, where we talk about what happens in the movies of the Ghostbusters, the shows, and the video game. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. And make sure you stay tuned also at the end of the month as we drop our episode on the history of King Kong and Godzilla working together as leads up to the new King Kong Godzilla movie. In the month of April, I'll be taking a little break as I go on vacation, celebrate my anniversary, and spend time with family. But I do have another podcast as well, which is Brian the Guys. And Steve's on that podcast sometimes too. And I talk about superheroes, superhero history, and we're going to delve very deep into the X-Men as we prepare for Deadpool and Wolverine and X-Men 97 comes out. So make sure you check that out if you're an X-Men nerd or superhero nerd. If you like this podcast and you want more of Gravely Musing, or you want to check out Brian the Guys, you can find us at Gravely Musing on X, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and you can find Brian the Guys at Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And if you just want to find me as I'm on social media and you want to discuss some stuff, you can find me on X, TikTok, Threads, and Insta as the Man Child of Steel. Thank you, Steve, for joining me tonight, and I hope you had as much fun as I did. I think you did. And thank you, listeners. I hope this podcast thrilled you. I hope it shocked you. And if nothing else, I hope it left you gravely amused.